Understanding New Literacies for New Times, Pedagogy in Action. The challenges associated with the emergence of new literacies within the 21st century standards and constructing environments in the classroom that address students' life experiences outside the school is a daunting task for teachers. As reported in eSchool News, May 2010, schools are experiencing serious budget shortfalls, and 57% of administrators in a survey reported they plan to delay technology purchases in public schools. More importantly, the current emphasis on standardized testing is viewed by some educators as problematic when trying to implement the new National Education Technology Plan, which proposes critical thinking, complex problem solving, collaboration, and multimedia communication. Even with a shortage of resources within schools and the present focus on standardized testing, this presentation will highlight the practices of two teachers who are engaging students in literacy practices that include digital media and online environments to meet the 21st century standards. The examples include the use of blogging in a writer's workshop, 6th grade classroom, and constructing digital storytelling using critical literacy in a 2nd grade classroom. It is critical that teachers begin to align their teaching with what students are experiencing in their lives outside school, as Luke stated in 1998. Considering Luke's premise, teachers need to help students to know how to critically analyze texts and produce texts in all the various forms in order to gain literate competence for a rapidly changing workplace. Students now engage in reading that is more than the ability to decode and comprehend print as we have known it, and they're involved in a variety of texts that include digital media and online environments. When teachers can draw upon these out-of-school literacies and use them within the classroom context, they have opportunities to engage students in exploring diverse cultures, multimedia, visual images, and the negotiation of multiple discourses and identities. Many researchers and practitioners support this premise and state a critical aspect of new literacies is the need to infuse the technologies within the practice to create meaningful learning, not just to add on to existing practices. In implementing change in the current climate, we raise the following questions. How do teachers weave new literacies within their practice, and what do they perceive to be the benefits to literacy development? In this presentation, we highlight two of the methods of delivery, classroom blogs and digital storytelling.
Digital storytelling is the practice of using computer-based tools to tell stories. As with traditional storytelling, most digital stories focus on a specific topic and contain a particular point of view. However, as the name implies, digital stories usually contain some mixture of computer-based images, text, recorded audio narration, video clips, and/or music. In the past, reading instruction in my class incorporated small group and individual work that focused on fluency, vocabulary, comprehension, phonics, and phonemic awareness goals. This type of instruction was successful in teaching my students reading skills, but it wasn't engaging them in a meaningful way. My students would gravitate toward stations that incorporated the use of the computer, an active board, or collaborative readers' theater performances that were broadcast on our inter-school television network. Based on my observations of my students' interests in learning through collaboration and technology, I decided to explore the use of digital storytelling in my own classroom. I began the transition into digital storytelling by having a familiar shared reading experience. I read the book, We Dream of a World, and as a class we discussed the author's purpose for writing this type of book and why the book's message matters to us. I used the ending of the book as a springboard for brainstorming our own dreams for the world we live in, which led to a writing extension to create a class book containing our thoughts. In the past, this is where the lesson would have ended, but now it is just the beginning. As a class, we discussed the next steps and learned together how to scan pages of our books into the computer, record our voices, import music into our story, and learn the sign language to match the music of our story. Incorporating digital storytelling into my students' literacy experiences has allowed them to engage with each other in a more meaningful way and learn how to work well with others as they learn new skills such as scanning. I found that all my students were highly motivated and engaged in the entire process because they were vested in their role in the creation of the story, and they had an authentic audience and presentation format. The topic of the story also allowed us to begin to think more globally as we discussed the aftermath of the tragedy in Haiti. This literature experience challenged my students to think of what would make their community a better place, and also take on the perspective of others from different areas of the world that have very different needs from themselves. As a culminating experience, my students performed their digital story for our school community, the PTA, and at our county technology fair. As a result, my students began to see themselves not only as storytellers, but as models of new forms of literacy.
Blogging allows students to be more collaborative in allowing for the open sharing and creation of information on sites like wikis and blogs. New literacies also offer the opportunity for the design of texts that are fluid and can be added to, remixed, and constantly reshaped. They can be shared easily through less hierarchical forms of distribution. For years, my literacy instruction was driven by the materials of our textbook adoption series. Basels were the primary source of text through which my students received instruction. Spelling and vocabulary study were addressed through lists of words selected by the publisher in the accompanying series workbooks. To assign a value to my students' growth and performance, weekly comprehension tests on basal selections were expected. Students were required to read and earn a predetermined number of points from literal comprehension tests on library books that were within their range of ability. Writing instruction was an event that was in no way connected to any part of the reading experience, but structured by generic prompts for isolated writing assignments. All of the pieces that make up literacy instruction were delivered in segmented portions without consideration of the needs and interests of my learners. I knew what I had been expected to do was not working. I was unhappy and my students were miserable. No part of the instructional event was personalized to my students. They were all a part of a one-size-fits-all classroom in which the teacher was trying to follow the program, but the program was not working. I knew several changes had to be made. My students deserved to read about what was of interest to them. They needed to talk to their peers about what they were reading in order to make stronger connections with the text and add to its meaning. They also needed writing events that were directly connected to their reading so that these experiences would support each other. Finally, being the digital natives that they are, my students needed a technological venue for sharing and creating within their literacy experiences. In order to meet this need, I began using a blog on my teacher webpage for students to post reader responses online. After closer evaluation of the social nature of my learners, I began to investigate other options for students' web-based literature responses. I have since created a NING, a safe, invitation-only social network for my students to post responses, share media, and engage in online discussions. As a result of my decision to implement change, my students are now reading what they desire to read. They will often choose to form their own book clubs in order to read the same text and have an online discussion. These digital sharing events take place in a safe, web-based venue I have created and continue to maintain. On the NING, my students post reader responses that are less summarizing and more sharing of their thoughts that occurred while they were reading. My self-professed non-writers are writing, and my non-readers are reading so that they too have something to discuss online. Students have also found interest in what others have to say, so there is an additional opportunity to read and interact with the text. My students refer to this interaction as metacognition, and they have become experts at thinking about their thinking.
Although there are issues we have to address in using technology within literacy practices, such as resources, time to explore and keep up with evolving technology, maintaining safety and security for the user. As mentioned by the two examples we shared, there are many benefits of technology integration within literacy instruction. They include more engaged readers who read more frequently and for longer periods of time, development of critical thinking due to interaction with texts, an increase in fluency and specificity in students' writing, the natural outcomes associated with increased reading time such as development of vocabulary, reading comprehension, reading fluency, and broadened schema for successive reading events, and more skillful, creative use of technology tools for communication and collaboration within literacy instruction, as well as other content areas.